What's up, Sparks? Today's video really begs the question, does Nissan still make an affordable, fun-to-drive two-door sports car?
Yeah, I'd say so. Welcome back to the channel.
My name is Chris, and I do car reviews for literally everybody, not just car enthusiasts. Before I begin today's video, as always, please don't forget to like this video, comment something down below, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so that you get notified whenever I drop a new video, which is whenever I'm not wiping handprints off of a 2024 Nissan Z Nismo. You heard that correctly. Today is my very first Nissan that I've ever had on my channel, and oh my goodness, is this quite the Nissan to have. Let's get into it. The Nissan 370Z was actually discontinued for production year 2020. I guess they needed some time to design this bad boy when it released in 2023. Now, I know at first glance that this might not actually look like the 370 or the 350Z, the more modern takes on it. The more that you look at it, the more that you'll start to see it actually kind of looks like some of its other predecessors. Now, the first major callback that I want to talk about is the Z badge located on the C pillar that is a throwback to the Fair Lady Z from the 1970s. The only real callback that I can see, aesthetically anyways, from the 350 or the 370 are these more modern door releases. Now, they might not be the linear vertical style door releases, but they still have that kind of quirky modern touch to it. Another major throwback is going to be from the tail lamp situation. Now, this is almost a direct copy from the 300ZX, just a little bit more modernized. I remember one of my neighbors back in the day having one of those, and I always loved the way that that thing looked. In general, the overall aesthetic of the 2024 Nissan Z is an almost mimicry of the original Fair Lady Z. From the silhouette, to the hood appearance, to even the modern take on the original headlamps. Yes, they are LED, and yes, they have daytime running lights, but this thing looks just almost identical to the original, but I love the way that they made this look. Now, what makes this a more performance-oriented Nismo is going to be the front bumper situation with the canards that are going to help with aerodynamics, the ultra-sporty rear diffuser plus the body-mounted rear wing for some extra downforce, and the fact that it has staggered tires with 10-inch wide tires on the front axle and 10.5-inch wide tires on the back axle. Now, speaking to the tires themselves, it's sitting on Dunlop SP Sport Max GT 600 tires. The front axle has 15-inch brake rotors, while the back axle has 13.8-inch brake rotors. Both axles have 4 piston calipers for ultimate stopping power and ultimate brake dust. This thing garners a ton of brake dust. Now, the one thing I failed to mention is the fact that it actually shares a chassis code with the outgoing 370Z, the Z34 chassis, which is like a huge thing to share it with, right? Now, aesthetically, the only thing that it shares it with is the door handles, but the underpinnings of the newest Z is basically the same thing underneath. Now, the Nissan Z shares a powertrain with the Infiniti Q50 Red Sport, which is a twin turbocharged 3.0 liter V6. The Sport and the Performance have 400 horsepower, while this one outputs 420 horsepower. This one also outputs 384 pound-feet of torque, which is an added 20 horsepower and 34 pound-feet of torque from the Sport and the Performance. So the Sport and the Performance also get a 6-speed manual as an option, or the 9-speed automatic transmission like this one has. No 6-speed optional, which is unfortunate for some auto enthusiasts, but for me, I can drive a manual, but I already don't really fit in the cabin that well, so if you were to add a clutch, I would be kind of out of luck, you know what I'm saying? Some other sport-tuned Nismo features that you can find is a redesigned larger wastegate for the turbocharger. It's going to have a more robust oil cooler, and it's going to have sport performance-tuned ignition timing. I don't know what that means. All right, and here we are in the 2024 Nissan Z Nismo. Now, the biggest influence, I think, aesthetically speaking anyway, from the 350 and the 370Z is going to be found on the interior. From the door panel vents that are so out of the more modern versions, it's ridiculous, to the 3 gauges that you can find on the dashboard themselves. Now, the only difference that I can see on the new gauges is the fact that the right-hand most gauge houses the voltmeter for the battery pack. So it's a huge upgrade, but it still shares a lot of the same aesthetics from the outgoing models. An additional upgrade is going to be this steering wheel. The steering wheel itself has these like kind of like touch sensitive but actual buttons for the controls for like the gauge cluster controller, as well as the music controller and the adaptive cruise control button and stuff. It's a really cool design, and I actually really like it, and it looks so much aesthetically better than the outgoing one, for sure. So in the center console, there is this mouse-like gear selector, which is pretty interesting. You pull it down for drive and then push it up for reverse and then press in a button for park. And there is an actual e-brake. It is a real e-brake, people. The HVAC controls are also tactile, which is a wonderful thing. Love that. There's a little slot here for your phone. There's USB-C and USB-A charge ports. Speaking to the general aesthetic of the car, again, looks very 350Z, 370Z, just a little bit more modernized. There is a lot of plastic. There's a lot of inject molding plastic that you can see. I mean, it's fine, I guess. I mean, maybe for like a $70,000 car, I would have liked something a little bit better, but they do try to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing with some leather on the underside of the dashboard as well as on the door panel. There is this like suede Alcantara kind of feel on the door panels as well. The only funny aspect of it is the stitching, right? So the stitching on the dashboard and on the door panel are fine, but then when they try to intersect and meet, it gets a little wonky. It's a little funny, and I think that they could have stopped the stitching where the door panel stitching began. I don't know. It's just a weird choice. The other outlying feature from the 370Z are the door controls. These are like literally straight out of like a Nissan Versa and or the outgoing 370Z, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, this is meant to be an affordable race car, right? So they're gonna use bin parts. Even though it doesn't have a 6-speed manual, you do have paddle shifters, and I really do like the paddle shifters. So for the infotainment system itself, it does have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. The CarPlay does work well in terms of like the touch sensitive nature and how quickly it responds. But then when you actually get into the real infotainment system, it's a little laggy, and it might also be because it has so much information. You've got traffic alerts, you've got sports scores. Who watches sports? Not me. Fuel prices, stock exchange, and the weather. I actually do like the fact that it has the weather in it, but everything else is a little, I don't know. I mean, it does have Alexa built in as well. I personally would only be using the Apple CarPlay, and it works just fine in that application. I really do love the 12.3-inch fully digital gauge cluster. You can customize it from normal, enhanced, and or sport mode. I've been keeping it in sport the whole time. I really like the oversized tachometer with the suggestion of a miles per hour in the top right-hand corner. It also has an F1 style shifter reticle, which is really, really cool. And then it also has a G meter as well, which I love the G meter, especially in a sports car. There are some like, you know, plastic buttons that, you know, I don't know what these are for the other models, if they even use them. Honestly, it's really not that bad of interior. I cannot get over the stitching aspect of it, but it definitely is a more modernized 370Z for sure. So anyways, how does it drive? All right, so it's a little slippery out today, if you couldn't tell from my intro, and thank God for two things. The limited slip differential that I forgot to mention earlier, and the traction control, because I would like to not wrap this around a tree. Thank you so very much. Now, the other thing I forgot to mention earlier too was the backup camera. Now, the backup camera literally looks like it's something straight out of 2014 when they were federally mandated, because it's laggy, it's grainy, it's just not very good quality. Additionally, it does have rear and front parking sensors, but they're just as laggy as the camera. So they help, but you have to drive incredibly slow. Like, you have to literally like eke along into your parking spot just to make sure that you don't smack into anything. So, but besides that, hopefully you will just be driving the rest of the time. You've got 3 drive modes to choose from: Standard, Sport, and Sport Plus. Now, Standard is great for daily driving. You really have to mash the accelerator in order to get down into like 3rd gear to blast off. Now for Sport and Sport Plus, Sport is more for a daily sporty driving. Well, Sport Plus is more track oriented, but you can still use it on the road if you want. It's just crazy. Sport does keep the engine pretty highly revved, but Sport Plus, I mean, I'm in third gear at 4,200 RPMs right now, going 47 miles an hour. I mean, it's like, it is begging me to speed up. And the really fun thing about it is that if it does keep at a higher RPM and it does, if it does notice that, well, maybe you're not actually gonna be accelerating, then it will back off and it will shift up. But it's actually, I was a little skeptical of the 9-speed at first, but it actually does a pretty decent job at its job. Now, you can opt for the manual mode as well, which you can access in two ways. You can either downshift on the paddle shifters themselves, or you can click down on the drive mode gear selector again, and it will automatically put you into manual mode. And the brakes are crazy. The brakes are really, I mean, I have made a crap ton of brake dust this past week. I don't know if you could tell just now, but it kind of got away from itself. And that has been a huge MO for this car, is that it is so torque happy that if you do not upshift quick enough, the wheels will literally get away from themselves. And I think, like, from just a general standpoint, the way it handles, especially for a front engine sports car, just a really easily accessible front engine sports car. I mean, it's incredible at handling. I really cannot get over how good it handles. Oh my God. Okay, my adrenaline, I need to get my adrenaline back. So anyways, honestly, this thing is a joy. This thing is a treat. You know, after I've been driving it now for like 30 minutes, and I will say that my butt does hurt a little bit from the Recaro bucket seats. Other than that, I really love the interior. The engine is sublime. The transmission is pretty good. I won't put it at like an incredible, but the transmission's pretty good. I think it's great for daily driving, and I think it's pretty decent at racing. I think that the Sport Plus mode does do it some good justice. The suspension, it's perfect. It's great for the sport aspect of it, and it's okay in the daily driving. It's not terrible. Honestly, I think that the Jaguar that I had was a little bit more shaky, and this one is, albeit really tight and really stiff, it's pretty good. But other than that, like, I love the redesign. I love all of the harkening backs. And the interior is pretty good. For having to put it at an accessible price point, I get why there's a lot of plastic and, you know, maybe the questionable stitching, you know, but the infotainment system is an improvement from the outgoing Z, and the gauge cluster is definitely an improvement from the outgoing Z. Engine note all day, you know. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell icon so that you get notified whenever I drop a new video. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Hey Sparks, thanks for watching today's video. Do you want more Sparkplug TV content? Then you can choose one of these 3 options right over here. The middle button is to subscribe to my channel, so please do that. Right over here. These 3. I can't see them in real life, but they're right here.